You may be seated. Anybody here know any jerks? I didn't ask if any of you are jerks, okay? Anybody here not know any jerks? If you don't know any jerks, it may be because you don't know what a jerk is. Or maybe you call them something else. Self-centered, inconsiderate, insensitive, rude, sleazy, dirtbag, lowlife, underhanded, a rat, or my daughter's favorite when she was little, meanie heads. You may call them something else, like a bodily orifice that I won't say because this is church and there are ladies present and we're being recorded. And if you don't know the term I mean, just think a little and you'll get to the bottom of it. Yes, it seems that when God created the heavens and the earth, He sprinkled a few jerks into the mix just to make it interesting. And since we all know one or more, and since unless you can afford to live on your own private island, there's no way to avoid them all, what do you do with them? How do we deal with the jerks in our life? Now, surprisingly enough, the Bible has some helpful hints. You may think that jerkism, jerkitis, and jerkosis are modern maladies, but they are not. There have been jerks pretty much from the beginning, starting with first jerk Cain, who murdered his brother Abel, to the rampant jerkaholics who filled the world with so much violence and corruption, God sent a flood to wipe out everybody except for Noah and his family, to King Herod the jerk, who sent soldiers to kill all the babies in Bethlehem, 2 years old or younger, to Pontius Jerkus Pilate, who sent Jesus to the cross. Yes, long before Star Trek came along, there have been Captain Jerks, boldly going where we wish they wouldn't. And our Bible lessons today give guidelines for how to deal with them. Now in Genesis, about 20 years before the lesson that Don read for us today, Joseph's jerkish brothers are so jealous that Joseph is their father's favorite son, they sell him into slavery. But over time, as Joseph is honest with people and faithful to God, God blesses him. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, puts him in charge of storing up enough food to get through a coming famine. And then when that famine hits, to sell the food to the Egyptians and hungry foreigners. Joseph's jerkish brothers show up to buy food, and Joseph recognizes them, but they don't recognize him. I mean, after all, it's been 20 years, and the last time they saw him, he was a teenager, led away as a slave by a bunch of Arabs in a caravan. Yeah, that Arab and Jewish thing's been going on a long time before the Gaza mess. We hear today how Joseph reveals himself to his brothers, who freak out from fear that Joseph is as jerky as they are. He's not. Now, Joseph recognizes his brothers are indeed jerks, but he also recognizes that God is stronger than jerks and clever enough to work around people's jerkdom to pull some small bit of good out of every evil. God took the jerk brothers' abuse of selling Joseph into slavery in Egypt and worked through their jealous jerkology to put Joseph into position to save millions of lives, including Joseph's jerky brothers. When we are subject to the logistics of selfish people who put us down or push us around or hold us back, let's do like Joseph and stay honest with people and faithful to God, and let's look for the good that God is going to pull out of the evil that's done to us, because it's going to be there. In Psalm 37, King David tells us how he deals with jerktarians. In verse 1 and 2, he says, "Do not fret yourself because of evildoers. Do not be jealous of those who do wrong, for they shall soon wither like the grass, and like the green grass fade away." Don't worry about the jerks in your life, and please don't fixate on how mean they've been to you. They won't be around forever. Sooner or later, they're going to wither and fade away. Verse 3, "Put your trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and feed on its riches. Trust God to take care of you. Do the right thing whether anyone else does or not, because God promises to provide all we need in spite of what any jerks may do to us. Verse 4, take delight in the Lord, and He shall give you your heart's desire. Do the right thing even when jerks don't. And sooner or later, God will grant you your heart's desire. As He says in verse 5, commit your way to the Lord and put your trust in Him, and He will bring it to pass. Verse 9, refrain from anger. Leave rage alone. Do not fret yourself. It leads only to evil. When some jerk in the box is bothering you, don't let anger push you towards being a jerk yourself. Because God knows how to deal with them and how to reward you for not being a jerk. Verse 10, for evildoers shall be cut off, but those who wait upon the Lord shall possess the land. In a little while the wicked shall be no more. You shall search out their place, but they will not be there. At some point, we're going to look around and wonder what happened, because there will be no more jerks. Until then, when someone jerkitates at you, do what God does in verse 14. The Lord laughs at the wicked because He sees that their day will come. And verse 18, for the power of the wicked shall be broken, but the Lord upholds the righteous. No matter how jerkified somebody is to you, God is there with you, and He's there for you, and He will get you through. Joseph says, when jerks abuse you, trust God to pull some good out of that evil. King David says, don't worry about jerks. Don't let them lure you towards the jerk side. Do the right thing, whether anybody else does or not, and God will get you through. But Joseph and David aren't the only ones who were subject to jerkulation. In the gospel lesson today, Jesus gives the final word about how to deal with jerktologists. He says, love your enemies. Do good towards those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. And pray for those who mistreat you. If you really want to annoy a jerk, act lovingly toward them. Be kind to them. And most of all, pray for them. You say, I'm not praying for them. They don't deserve it. No, they don't. You're absolutely right. But who needs prayer more than a chronic jerk? Your prayer may be what delivers them from terminal jerkification. And your kindness may be what prompts them to soften their jerkifying. Besides, the best way to destroy an enemy is to treat them so kindly that you turn them into a friend. It gets worse. Jesus continues, if someone slaps you on one cheek, turn to them the other also. If someone takes your coat, do not withhold your shirt from them. Give to everyone who asks you, and if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. What? Let that jerk slap me? Yes. Once. Then turn the other cheek and let him slap you again. Now, that may be all it takes to drain their anger and jerkulation. That may be enough to open their eyes to see how other people see them as meanie heads and jerk-taters. But people who are hurting hurt other people. And lots of jerks were not born that way. They're not congenital jerks. They're just people who have been hurt by other jerks, infected by their exposure to bad behavior, and then come down with a case of jerkosis themselves. Let's give people at least 2 cheeks before we write them off as permanent jerks. But if they try to slap you a 3rd time, turn your final cheek and walk away. And if they try to slap you again, slap them back. Because the only thing that stops bullies is standing up to them. But no matter how jerkily anybody treats you, Jesus gives us the bottom line for how to respond to jerks, and indeed how to respond to everyone. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Treat people the way you want to be treated, even if they're a jerk. Anybody here know any jerks? That would be all of us. And when we find ourselves subject to jerktuition, let's be like Joseph and act honestly towards people and faithfully toward God and trust God to pull some good out of their evil. And let's be like King David and not dwell on what jerks have done to us, but trust God to be with us and get us through whatever jerkulation occurred. Let's determine not to live in anger and certainly not to be jerks ourselves, but to imitate God and to laugh at them. Bless their hearts, they just don't know any better. And finally, let's be like Jesus and treat the jerks in our life the way we want others to treat us and how we would want people to treat us if we were the jerk. Because if we're entirely honest, at some point in our life, with at least one person in our life, every one of us has been a jerk. And God put each of us on earth just to make it interesting.